Hello everyone and welcome back to our YouTube channel Sharang and Sharvari. So first of all, we are today experimenting with a new camera angle. So please let us know in the comments of whether this suits us. I think this is a much better angle in terms of
Yeah.
engaging viewers, and it just seems like a more natural way of talking.
Hmm.
But please let us know in the comments for any feedback. There were a lot of feedbacks pertaining to audio quality, but those issues seem to have been completely solved now. So if you have some criticisms and feedback regarding this, that would be greatly appreciated. Second of all, I would like to thank you all for your feedback and all the love and positivity that you have showered us on our videos, all the comments you have left, so on and so forth. And without further ado, without wasting more time, I would like to start off by starting today's topic, which is no house, no job, no partner, no friends equal to no hope. The sad
Sounds very
reality.
sad.
Yeah, but that is unfortunately the sad reality which is facing India's youth today. And honestly, like I've been here since November now, and it's been roughly 1 to 2 years
Hmm.
since I was back, and you've also been here roughly
Hmm.
for the same time frame. And I think in that time we have experienced the job market in India, and especially when I compare and contrast it with the job market overseas,
Hmm.
it's a bit of a dismal picture, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I often meet my friends, I talk to them, and the grim reality which is facing people in India today, especially young men
Hmm.
or young women in India, seems to be like their lives seem to be screwed in many, many different
Yeah,
ways.
that's true.
So
Actually.
I'll start off in a step-by-step fashion.
Hmm.
First is the housing market, right? So
Hmm.
whenever a young person wants to establish themselves, the first thing that they think about is कि अपना खुद का घर होना चाहिए.
Yeah.
They think about buying a home, and buying a home was always considered a mark of pride. Like apna ghar, like a home of your own is considered a significant step in ownership, so on and so forth. Today, pricing costs in urban areas have skyrocketed to the point where this is just insane. So, like I know the data, right? So the a home, right? It's a normal 1 BHK
Hmm.
flat. In a city in India, especially if you want something in the urban center, it costs like you may not believe this, but it costs around 70 to 80 lakhs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
I
talking
totally
about
believe
I'm
you.
talking about a 1 BHK, right? I'm
Yeah.
not even talking about a 2 BHK. So just a flat where three people, right? A mother and father and a child can live in.
Oh.
That will cost 70 lakh Indian rupees. Like which is 700,000 Indian rupees for our foreign audience,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's right.
However, the same, like the average salary of
Hmm.
an Indian person is around 25 to 30,000 rupees per month. So let's say you're a salaried employee, let's say you're a college educated person, even then it's something around the range of 30 to 35,000
Hmm.
Indian rupees. It's not more than that. So then in that context, in that case, the reality for these people becomes dismal, right? Because how much of your paycheck can you realistically afford to save? Right?
Right.
So in this 35,000,
Hmm.
let's say you spend roughly 5 to 10,000 rupees on transport and another 5 to 10,000 rupees on like your basic living expenses, right? A
Exactly.
family of three, actually with school fees, etc., is going to go way up, right? So when you include all of that on a salary of 35 to 40,000, even, which is like a good salary by
Hmm.
Indian standards, right? It's the salary that an educated person who's slightly experienced a few years can hope
Exactly.
to command. But
Hmm.
an average person, not with someone who has an exceptional career, that's the kind of person who can hope to command that kind of a salary.
Hmm.
And if all that money is gone, then like a person like that will have 5 to 10,000 rupees left for leisure, and in that, if he is expected to pay EMIs on a home that costs 70 lakh rupees, that's just never going to happen. Or even if it does, he or she will be constantly stressed, because the moment something happens to his or her job, then that's it.
Yeah, and, like you literally will have no savings.
You literally will have no
Which,
savings.
and I think in this day and age, savings are literally. Can I mark this moment because he actually pulled the
Yeah,
chair
like you
towards
seem
me?
to drifting a bit out of frame. But anyway, yes, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, but let's timestamp that. It's a rarity, so yeah. But as I was saying, is that you are unable to save
Yeah.
if you have like an EMI, or if you're already paying for a house and you have a family. So I don't think you can manage with a lot of
Yeah,
saving.
like you can't, and like what we did not consider is we did not count anything for leisure, right? So
Yeah,
you will spend at least 5 to 10,000 rupees even on leisure. So it's like, do you spend on leisure or do you just spend on trying to buy one home of your own,
exactly.
And like you'll maybe spend the rest of your life just paying EMIs on a flat, and then what, you know? Um this brings us to another aspect, which is the fact that, okay, so if the home is affordable in the city center, then what do you
Hmm.
do? Then what do you do is you get a home in the outskirts of a city,
Hmm.
right? So if you get let's say like Mumbai as a city center, then you get like a flat in, let's say, Dombivli, which is like almost 50 to 60 kilometers away
Away
from the city
from, yeah.
center. You spend 1.5 hours commuting to, 1.5 hours commuting fro. So it's like 9 hours of work
Hmm.
plus three, that makes 12 hours just in this. And afterwards, you get home, you're just dead. You have no energy left to do anything in life. And that kind of work just it
It
demoralizes
tears
people.
you apart,
It
honestly.
really tears
It's
you apart.
horrible.
Which brings us to the second aspect, which is the reality of the job market in India.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, getting jobs, how difficult it is, that's a story of its own,
Hmm.
right? I think this may be like, from what I've seen, right?
Hmm.
Today, India has a giant unskilled labor pool, right? So these are people who are on the streets selling some stalls, or they are just your taxi drivers. Those people surprisingly always seem to have employment opportunities,
Hmm.
because there's a large urban market in India and they want to go places, etc.
Hmm.
And so there is a pool for those. But if you are an educated person in India and your parents spent a lot of money trying to educate you, then many times there are just no jobs available for you, or you
Exactly.
have to fight tooth and nail over just one job.
Yeah.
And what happens in a situation where there's one job vacancy and 10 people are fighting desperately over that single job vacancy? What happens is terrible exploitation of the people.
Definitely.
And like the Indian, there is an Indian labor law. Those rules seem pretty fair, but do you know that even legally, Indians are supposed to work 45 hours per week, which is insane, because it's not even at the world standard of 40 hours. So,
Yeah.
okay, forget it. We are a poor country. We have to work 45 hours. Even that's not
Hmm.
really counted. So the employers don't really care about the Indian labor law, nor do the employees, to be honest. Like things like breaking your contract and absconding is common. So it's in chaos, right? And so companies in India, there are many different sectors,
Hmm.
right? So you can't generalize. The one sector in India that pays really well, or that did pay really well, is the tech support
Yeah,
sector,
that's
right?
true.
So it paid well to the point where Indian tech supports and Indian software engineers and Indian coders had become a bit of a stereotype.
Hmm.
And today we are in the age of AI, and AI has hit the tech support or tech sector like a sledgehammer. I'm sure you must have been hearing all the layoffs which are happening in the US, but it's also happening here in India. The fat is being trimmed. Right now, the tech industry is in dire straits. I
Yeah.
have friends, half of whose like in their offices where they work, half of their workforce has been cut. So they're worried about losing their jobs. Like people close to us are deep intimately involved with
Yeah.
in the tech sector, and he's like, this person is like an employer in the tech sector, and we
Hmm.
spoke to him and he said, yeah, like I get flooded with 300 resumes every day and he runs a company of only 14 to 15 people. So this is the reality of the tech sector in
Exactly.
India. And other jobs are also pretty similar, where like people there are a lot of people ready, but then and there's also a skills gap. So like at the very top, amongst highly skilled people, there's a dearth of those highly skilled
Yeah.
people, but for average people in average positions, it's a brutal reality out there.
I mean, when I look at the job market scene, it's pretty scary to think about what the future is going to look like. I think that's a segue for a whole entire video, maybe.
Yeah.
So if you guys want us to explore that topic, we will. But just thinking about it right now made me wonder, okay, where is this going?
Yeah, I mean,
And
I don't want to talk too much about it because, as Sharvari said, this will be a different video. But
exactly.
like all this time, right? Like since the Industrial Revolution started, we built machines to replace manual labor with machine work, right? So for the vast majority of the Industrial Revolution, the first 250 to 300 years of it, it was
Yeah.
mostly about building steam engines and mechanical plows or a tractor or something like this.
Yeah.
Now what is happening is intellectual labor is being replaced by AI, and turns out that AI is much better at doing intellectual tasks than even physical tasks, right? So the thing is, if you try to program a machine to play chess, or if you try to, like, a chess is a very complicated thing for a human being to learn, but for a machine it's this simple. However, if you ask a machine to, if you try to program an AI to walk along the floor, that is a very difficult thing. So many times the sector which is more protected from AI job loss, or most protected, are actually handymen and repairmen and people who work with their hands. Like, that's the thing that AI finds it most difficult to replace. Although if Boston Dynamics has its way, that also might get automated.
Exactly.
So that's a different segue what AI will do. But the current reality of the job market in India is that it is not good. And yeah, so whenever I talk to people, like, I have a lot of friends, and many of my friends and people I know and love, they are getting salaries which they can't even afford to live independently, right? Like, the only reason they're doing the jobs that they're doing currently is because they're living with their parents. So essentially their entire lifestyle is being subsidized.
And I think this again segues into another topic, is that such people then find it difficult to get married.
Yes, perfect segue. So this brings us to the next topic,
And
which
let's
is,
not even talk about modern marriage. I mean,
yeah,
you guys can go and watch our video. We have a lot of
yes,
intense opinions, which you may
controversial
like,
ones.
you may not like, but we really don't care.
Well, I care.
I care about, people understanding or engaging with our content, but our opinions are our opinions. So
What
it is.
happened to you? Anyway,
Marriage changes you people in a good way, in my
okay.
case.
So, like, then we come. So imagine you're a young man who's like 25, 26, 27. You literally killed yourself in school, all the while trying to get into a good university or college. You got a good degree. But now you have, quote unquote, a good job, but it barely pays for you to live, and you're just surviving on scraps. You're just living with your parents because you literally cannot afford to live independently. And in this, you're trying to date, find the right person. It's just hell out there.
Horrible.
Because social media has given people an unrealistic like expectation of what life is for the average person.
Correct.
Additionally, the most decadent of lifestyles and the most luxurious of lifestyles are bombarded through our screens at us the whole time. And because of this, like, people today have unrealistic expectations. And because of, in my humble opinion, female hypergamy, women are the ones, and excess feminism or toxic feminism. Check out our earlier video. Women in particular seem to have unrealistic expectations, which the average guy is never going to meet. So what happens in the modern marriage market is, like, 95% of women are competing for top 5% of the men, which is because, so maybe they can secure short-term flings with those guys, but it never will translate to a stable commitment and never to marriage.
Exactly.
So what happens in India, at least, is a large pool of men who are unable to get married. They're frustrated with their lives, and and at this point, right, is the point where you begin to ask yourself, what is the point of it all? And before I continue further, please, Sharvari.
Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, regarding the marriage thing itself, there is a lot of trouble there, and people, like, not just finding someone. Okay, you find someone, everything goes great, good for you. You also have stories of things not going great.
Yeah.
So the additional burden of that adds to this whole sadness. That is one thing. Then we go into the whole, divorce alimony thing. Like, again, another video.
Where also there are multiple laws which favor women over men.
Yeah, exactly. So all of this collectively makes marriage unfit for, like, Gen Zs are getting married, I will say. So we probably might be the last generation who will actually think of legal marriage, unfortunately.
I don't know, but yeah, given the
might be
marriage
the
rates,
case.
you might be right. I'm not sure though.
Exactly. But one more thing that we have forgotten to, acknowledge here is declining health of people.
Right. I'm so glad you brought it up.
Exactly. And like whenever me and Sharan go out to meet any of our friends, nowadays, like people talk about ailments, which is
Yeah.
funny because we are like literally in our 20s.
Yeah.
So this is like talk when you're 70 or something, or okay, maybe 50,
Yeah.
but not at 20.
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, this hurts, that hurts. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, like it makes me realize how unfit we are as a society when it comes to health. Like people are obese, and I can say this because I have a master's in clinical health psychology, as we know. So I have some
And some education in metabolic health.
I have a bit of a background in metabolic health. So I am currently involved in the healthcare sector. So like the new, disease called cardiodiabesity is on the rise, which is a mix of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity.
Yeah.
And if you think of it really closely, every alternate person has at least one of these.
Yeah. So I'll give some concrete data to back up our anecdotal evidence and observations. So like they did a survey of like IT workers or tech workers who are like the most affluent of the salaried class in India, and 70 to 80% of them had a disease known as fatty liver,
Yeah.
which is when your diet is so unhealthy, or it can happen due to a variety of factors, but there's literally fat accumulation in your liver, and that's a bad, it's a very, very serious disorder.
Exactly.
Additionally, I don't know what exactly the numbers are, maybe you can help me out, but the number of women in recent years who have told me that they have PCOD or PCOS is just insane.
I don't know it number wise, but I can confidently say it's a lot. I mean, if we get some good articles, we can link them for sure.
And like the additionally, it's like the number of people who are like obese and overweight. You just have to walk down the street, like America. Like people used to love to make fun of America, that oh, Americans are so fat, Americans are so obese. Just take a look at the modern Indian generation and see how, especially the people in urban India, and see how many of them are fat. It's just it's genuinely sad to see. And so I think
this
is
again
anything you
involves
would
why
like to-
has this happened in the first
Yes.
place? Like I would
So yes.
endless internet scrolling, mindness, like phone addiction. Then there are things like depression, anxiety, or like we just covered physical disorders. I don't even want to get into mental disorders right now because
Like,
they're crazy.
but study after study has shown that Gen Z has the worst mental health of probably every of all the generations previously, but I'm not sure about that because mental health, it's like it's difficult to get good surveys. And additionally, in India, people would never tell you even if they had a mental disorder. So it's a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole taboo makes it hard to really get a clear number. But I think if you just talk to a few people, you can literally get an idea of how vast it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So that is one thing.
There's some definitely people who have some undiagnosed mental illnesses, like for sure. Like, it's genuinely sad to see.
Yeah.
So
My heart goes out to them.
yeah. So all of this then brings us to the central topic that, let's say you're a young man in India and you worked your ass off in school, all for the all for in the hopes and dreams that okay, this education would pay off, would get you a great job, a great life, right? And then you find yourself stuck in an office for 9, 10, 11, 12 hours per day, bosses who think it's okay to just be mean to you or whatever. You find yourself in that situation where you feel like you're being potentially exploited, the labor law is not being properly implemented, so on and so forth. That's one thing. Job wise, the money you make may be good, might not be good, but in any case it's not enough to save and have a good life and be able to afford a home. Your relationships are in the toilet, because like one thing we forgot to add about was friendships. Like friendships have declined so much in our generation, and that is one thing that genuinely breaks my heart. Like when I was like just 10 or 12 years ago in the India that I lived in, people like were much more social in India. They would, like, we had this thing called a katta. Katta is like basically a sitting place where you sit, and you just, the idea was that everyone meets there. We just have fun. Hangout spot, like, and people used to have a sense of community, and that has, like, in front of our own eyes, that has just disappeared. So you're a young man, you're miserable in your job, you're too poor to afford a home, you don't really, like, you can't afford to get married, or for whatever reason you're not able to get married, you don't really have friends and social connections, then you're in bad health, you're in bad shape, either because of pollution or PCOD or PCOS, or whatever, fatty liver disease, etc., etc. All of this leads to a profound climate of hopelessness, right? Because if you are all that, if you have nothing to build towards, if you have nothing to strive towards, right? Because if you're not married, most likely you're not having kids. So you have nothing to work towards, you have nothing to provide for, right? Then why work hard? The logical thing to do in that is kind of give up, to do the bare minimum, earn enough money for yourself, and if you decide to live a minimalist lifestyle, you can get by on very very little. So let's say you never move out of your parents' house, just live with your parents, you don't have any dependents in terms of a wife or kids, then you can live on as little as 5,000 rupees in India, which you can get, which anyone can get anyhow. You don't really have to try for that low sum of money. So this has and is going to lead to a generation that gives up. And I can't think of a more sad endpoint for a society and a civilization.
Like, people have told me I have a very rare skill set in today's day and age, that is positivity.
Yes.
So we don't want to make this video, make you question life or send you into an existential crisis. Even though we did that for a while, it's just because we presented facts to you.
Yeah.
But this can change. How do you think it can?
I maybe I'm a pessimist or whatever, but because, like, I have read studies on something like mouse utopia. So this was like just read up on mouse utopia. It was a rat colony. They had everything, but for whatever reason it collapsed. Read Oswald Spengler, who talked about the rise and fall of civilizations. Everything I've told about or I've read about history is that civilizations rise and civilizations fall, and it's like an eternal cycle of birth, stability, and destruction. And I think the industrial civilization is winding up. That's my honest opinion. I'm sorry to depress you all.
I, whereas, might hold a bit of an optimistic view on this. In my case, I think it's all about the choices you make. Because, like, if you look at every part, okay, let's come to the housing and job part. Maybe you can't do anything about it. Fair enough. The other three areas that we mentioned are actually areas in which you can make choices. Good choices, at least aim to make good choices. You can work on your health, eat better, exercise. We always tell that to everybody. Regarding friendships, we somewhere, all of us, have an ego. Like, we're like, okay, why should I text first? That person should. Extend your hand first. And if that person is interested, he or she will make sure that their hand also comes forward. So if you take the first step, such a thing can work, and you can maybe strengthen your friendships. Same goes with relationships. Have some faith in people. I know it's very hard to say in today's day and age, but you will find that person whom you actually, fit with, or who has and wants the same things in life like you do. So we found each other. I mean, it was a struggle, of course, but we did find each other, and of course, there's someone for you too. So I think this would be the positive outlook.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, I hope parts of it are correct, and there's, of course, there's the general rule which applies to everyone, and then for every rule there are outliers and exceptions. And, like, to be honest, we also got lucky on a myriad of ways. So, like, the families that we were born into, for example, or like the looks that genetically or whatever, the genetic health markers and everything. So luck also plays a huge role in this. But yeah, I think this is all from my end, unless you want to add something.
No, I guess this is a good place to close this video. So guys, do let us know if you thought we were too dark, to pessimistic, a bit optimistic. We would love to hear your views on it. And also make sure you hit that bell icon so you know when we post a video. We aim to post every Wednesday and Saturday, so make sure you stay tuned.
Yeah.
Also, if you haven't already, then like, share, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. See you guys, and bye bye.
Bye.